Okay, Exodus 12:48 through 49, talking about the inclusiveness and seriousness of keeping the Passover. I'll just read Exodus 12 real fast. If a stranger shall sojourn with you and would keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised. Then he may come near and keep it. He shall be as a native of the land, but no uncircumcised person shall eat of it. There shall be one law for the native and for the stranger who sojourns among you. What I find a few things interesting, and I have more questions than answers actually. It's fascinating to me that God requires that the males be circumcised to eat the Passover. Whether they're native, the natives should be circumcised anyway, but for a stranger to celebrate the Passover, they need to be circumcised. I actually see very much throughout Scripture that God cares a lot about circumcision, and especially by him saying that in order to keep the Passover, you actually have to be circumcised. If you're a stranger and want to do it, you got to be circumcised first. It's interesting. And then also that there's one law for the native and the stranger who wants to become part of Israel. That is interesting to me too, because I think so often within America anyway, we have different laws for different groups of people. And then also just tying into that, how we're with the olive tree and Christians are a wild branch that's been grafted in. I think so often we like to think of ourselves as actually the root rather than the branch. And so I think this idea of circumcision, as a stranger who wants to sojourn with the Israelites, they need to be circumcised. I think that is a way of grafting themselves in to the main tree that has the roots. So that's just fascinating to me. And then in terms of the seriousness of keeping Passover, in Numbers 9:13 it says, "But if anyone who is clean and is not on a journey fails to keep the Passover, that person shall be cut off from his people because he did not bring the Lord's offering at its appointed time. That man shall bear his sin." I don't really know exactly what to make of this in terms of why it is so crucial. But it's just interesting to me how God cares so much about people keeping the Passover that if they don't keep it, they'll actually be cut off from Israel. And when I use the term Israel, I'm talking about people of faith. I'm not talking about the direct descendants of Jacob, because even foreigners, strangers, can become Israel by aligning themselves to Yehovah, to Yahweh, however you want to pronounce it, to God, and becoming circumcised, being willing to follow his commands and do his, live in his ways. So when I say Israelites, I mean people of faith, not descendants of Jacob. And if you don't keep the Passover, it actually says you'll be cut off. It's just interesting to me how God cares so much about circumcision and keeping the Passover. I would love to hear what you make of it. Please comment below.